I just wanted to say thank you for everyone for attending the meeting tonight with the Medical Cannabis Patients Association. It means a lot that you've given up your time to come and speak to patients, and we really appreciate speaking to you, and we learn a lot in these QA sessions. So thank you. I just got a few things to read out. So please be aware that our meetings are live streamed on YouTube for accessibility, and we're also recorded and uploaded to the MCPA YouTube account for patients and reps to watch later on. Please contact us if you've got any questions or problems with that. Just let us know. So today we've kindly got with us. Let me go through. We've got Mike Morgan-Giles. He's the Chief Executive of the Cannabis Industry Council. We've not got Mike Barnes with us yet. So we've also got Guy Coxall. He's from Seed Our Future. And we've got James Smith. He's the CRO of 4C Labs. And we've got, I'm sorry if I don't say your name right, Surinder. I was practicing before, but I think it's Surinder Janira. I'm really sorry about that.
Oh, no worries whatsoever, Sarah. My name is Sujinder, and I'm pleased to be here. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. So basically, I just wanted to go through a couple of things, and then I'll just pass to you all to introduce yourselves, if that's okay. Just do a quick intro, just in case people don't know who you are on the call. I'm sure a lot of people do know where everybody is. So I'll pass round to everybody now. So if I start off with Mike Morgan-Giles, I'll pass to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm the CEO of the Cannabis Industry Council. Many will be familiar with us. We're a trade association. We've been going for about 3 years, representing the industry and the supply chain, and MCPA are one of our members. So very happy to be here speaking to you today.
Thank you, Mike. And we've not got Mike with us yet, Mike Barnes. I'll pass over to Guy Coxall.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, sorry. Yes, I'm Guy. I've been running Seed Our Future for about 3.5 years now. The main aspect is really campaigning for legislative reform, but we also have been very involved in supporting patients with a range of legal cases, such as patients being arrested for driving, possession, things like that, but also discrimination cases in the workplace, in public venues, and that sort of thing. So yeah, we've been very busy, and it's been increasing numbers. I'm getting contacted almost several times a week now with cases, and it shows how big the issue is with stigma and discrimination regarding to medical cannabis prescriptions. So really, we need to educate as much of the population, institutions, organisations and businesses, to make sure that they understand that medical cannabis has to be treated the same as any other medication. And that people can't be abused by the system anymore. So that's really what I'm all about.
Thank you very much, Guy. And then I'll pass over. I think Mike Barnes is here. He says he's here, but he can't speak. Could you put your hand up? Raise your hand, Mike.
Sarah, I'm resending him the link just to see if that will work.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem. All right.
What's his name on here? I can't actually see him on here, to be honest.
Yeah, I can't see him on the list, so I don't think he's...
Maybe his professor brain might have gotten confused, so I've sent him a new... I've copied and pasted the link, so I've sent it to him. So hopefully that will get it sorted, but Zoom is friendly for him. It's the right format.
Yeah.
I'll keep checking.
It took me a while to get onto Zoom, but I think he may be joining now. I know that's another James Smith.
No, that's me. I'm James
Smith.
No.
Okay. So in the meantime, I shall pass to you, James Smith, to introduce yourself.
Oh, there he is.
Hey.
Oh, he's here. Hi, Mike.
Hi there. I've been here all the time, but you haven't been able to hear me.
Sorry about that.
I'm labelled doubly as James Smith, so if I say anything silly, I'll blame James because I'm...
Right, we'll rename. Let's get you renamed. There we go.
Just listening to you, thinking what you said about me.
There we go. I think it's been changed now. So would you like to introduce yourself then while you just come on now, if that's okay?
Me, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not James Smith. I'm Mike Barnes. I'm a neurologist. Been involved in cannabis for 20 odd years. Started the Medical Cannabis Society. Started the Cannabis Industry Council, but I no longer chair of that. Mike is the chief executive of that. And that's pretty well me at the moment. I run a consultancy called Maple Tree and do a few other bits and pieces in the cannabis sector. Thank you. Thanks for asking me. Sorry about that delay. Don't know what
It's
happened.
all right. It's we've just moved over to this webinar format, so we're all kind of still learning ourselves. So thank you for bearing with us. Yeah, thank you. I will pass over to James Smith now, and then you can pass over to Syringe, if that's okay.
Yes. So, hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be here. Your work is invaluable, as is the work of Guy, Kieran, and all the people who are patient advocates. So I'm here, I imagine, because we're the importers of record for the company that Sujinder works for. You see how good it was? I didn't even mention their name. And but he's allowed to talk about it. And it was the last time I was here was great, and it was amazing to go up and see you at home and to have your mom's food. And
So live then.
For those who don't know me, I'm sorry, I just assumed that that's terrible. I'm one of the co-founders of 4C Labs. We are a licensed cultivator on the island of Guernsey. Please God, someone give us money so we can do that. And we're also a Schedule 1 holder, and we're the importer of record for a number of companies. Currently, we're selling those products into the UK and more to come. And I also, Mike roped me into the CIC at the very beginning, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Prescription Cannabis Subcommittee. So happy to answer any questions around CIC things or industry questions, as well as corporate stuff. Thank you very much for having us.
And good morning. My name is Sujinder. I'm from Pearson Farms here in British Columbia. By way of introduction, I have been working in the cannabis industry since about 2017, first as a journalist, and then I worked for the BC government to help set up cannabis operations in our province through to legalization from a content and education perspective. Since then, I've been at Pearson Farms for almost 5 years now, and I'm currently a manager of product innovation and education, working closely with our cultivation and commercial teams, helping to bring our new cultivars to market. I have a deep passion and knowledge for the plant, and I spend a lot of time in the greenhouse, which is why I'm really happy to speak to you today.
Thank you. That's absolutely brilliant. And it's wonderful to have every single one of you on. We really appreciate your time. And I just wanted to say on that kind of front, thank you very much to Script Assist for sponsoring this industry webinar, because they cost a lot of money, and anyone's continued support over the monthly costs is really helpful for us. So just want to say thank you again to them. And we just wanted a quick word before we pass over to the patient submitted Discord questions. I think we was going to do Sujinder's first, because I know you're on a limited time. But we just wanted to introduce, basically the MCPA is introducing a new campaign, and it's called the Normalise It Campaign. It's an MCPA project to normalise the use of medical cannabis in public spaces. I'll share a picture of the logo now. So hopefully people should be able to see my screen. Don't know if anyone can pin that or make it so everyone can see that. But our campaign is it's a logo that businesses can display in their window to show they support legal medical cannabis patients medicating at their premises. This will become a Google Maps-like searchable database that patients can use to find the nearest friendly location to them, and hopefully we've got a companion app to follow. The MCPA is in the process of contacting businesses who will get a welcome pack with window stickers, information about legal cannabis, how to access it for new patients, and guidance for current patients, as well as information about the MCPA. So current patients and new patients are going in informed. And we're currently calling out for our current patients to submit photos and videos and testimonials for the campaign to our website and in the Discord. So if people want to get involved, please let us know. But we'll be announcing more about that at a later date. We're just kind of announcing the start of it today. So I'll stop my screen sharing. And I will pass over to my Vice Chair, Sean, who will be asking the questions that have been asked in the Discord tonight. I think he's going to go around kind of from person to person. Sky's got a hand up.
Yeah, just wanted to ask if anyone has any questions, put them in the question and answer box. Anyone that's watching.
Yeah. If anyone's got any questions they would like answered live, yeah, please put them in the question answer box in the bottom of the screen, and Sky will then read them out later on in the Zoom. So I'll pass over to Sean now, and he will begin with the questions.
Hi, thanks for coming. First of all, yeah, thank you all for coming. As Sarah said. For Surjinder, again, I apologize for butchering your name. Questions are just some context. As patients, we're keen on seeing more products in the market, things like live resin, cannabis extracts, more focus on full spectrum products. Are you able to discuss any upcoming product innovations with us? Do you guys have any plans on introducing those type of products, edibles, things like that? Is there any licensing hurdles that are stopping you from doing so, bringing it into the UK?
I think that's a really good question, Sean. Thank you.
Thanks,
I mean,
Sean.
certainly we work very closely with our partners, in each market, and we have a commitment to innovation and bringing newness to every market for sure, wherever possible. I think, though, for this question, I'd like to pass this on to James, and he can speak directly to that for the UK market.
So certainly we are able to bring in things like gummies, that is allowed, vape pens are allowed. Live rosins and hashes are a more challenging means of vaporizing. So it's a challenge to that's a bigger challenge. But I know that Pure Sun Farms have a number of other genetics in their stock, and as they have done so far, they're going to do things perfectly, which means 3-batch testing and rigorous stability testing to make sure that what's inside the bottle is what's on the outside of the bottle. That's how they roll. They do things perfectly. That's why we love them, and that's why we think that their medicine is doing so well in the marketplace. But we can address, Sarah, I'm happy to, if you want to come back to that later, I can go through the hurdles that we face as an industry, but I think it's, we can discuss that at a later date.
Thank you. Sorry. Also, will your product offerings available to the UK ever match your range that is available in the Canadian market? It appears from the from your websites, you have a far wider range that we currently have access to here over in the UK. Oh, sorry, for Surjinder.
Yes, again, I think this is a James question for sure. I mean, and to be sure, I mean, we are always listening, to the needs of our patients. And certainly James has made the communication very open, between him, and I think that he's very open to hearing what patients are looking for.
Sorry, also about as patients, everything's expensive over here. I presume everywhere else. We're also looking for not sample packs, but smaller quantities instead of 10-gram pots all the time, and 3.5 grams maybe to start with, just so people, it's when you get a 10-gram pot, and if your medicine doesn't agree with you, you've just wasted 10 grams, which is no good for anyone really. So is there any possibility of smaller sizes, 3.5s?
So Jinder, I can handle that question. So again, that comes down to stability testing. So stability testing is very laborious. It takes a long time to accomplish. It's very expensive. And I have made these suggestions to producers, but to be able to do 2 sets of stability tests on 3 sets of genetics all at the same time is just a huge mountain to climb. So it is definitely something that we're taking into consideration, because we recognize that by going to, say, a 5-gram pouch, it would allow patients to take a step into it without the same risk as a 10-gram pouch. We totally get it, working on it, but for us as a company, we need to go through the steps one at a time. And the first thing is just getting it to market. And then we'll start to work on more budget-friendly sizing as we progress through the market. But it is definitely on our minds.
All right, excellent. Note. Sorry, patients have suggested they'd like to see more sedating nighttime strains. Fewer limonene heavy strains are available in the UK market. Is this something you'd be willing to consider when choosing future strains for UK patients?
Well, certainly with the 3 strains that we have so far launched under the Pearson Farms brand in the UK, they do cater to that very need exactly. So certainly our Pink Kush, our Jet Fuel Gelato, and our D Burger, none of them are limonene heavy cultivars. In fact, they tend to be dominated with myrcene and caryophyllene, those that do tend to favor that sort of experience that you're suggesting there, Sean, as well.
Excellent. Brilliant.
And I will also have to say that they smell great as well.
Brilliant. I personally have not tried your product myself as yet, but soon.
It's not too late.
No, never is. Hopefully, yeah, cool. Thank you very much for those questions. Moving on to Mike Morgan Giles, the CIC. Yeah, that's okay. All right.
Yep, far away.
All right, sorry. Yeah, all right. The CIC have previously said it must not be forgotten that at the industry's roots are very unwell adults and children who, even after being lucky enough to receive a medical cannabis prescription, face high costs and long waiting times. Sadly, their voices are often lost within other industry bodies. So the council will give patients, businesses, and public bodies an equal say. How do you think the CIC are managing this currently? And do you believe that patients' voices are adequately included and considered? Sorry, go on.
No, please finish. I thought you had.
No, just one last, just working more closely with us basically to help further facilitate this. Would you be willing for that?
Yeah, so I mean, since Professor Mike, who's obviously on the call, and James and others launched CIC, they admitted patient groups right from the beginning. We've had a number over time who've been members. At the moment, we have MCPA, we have Senskara, Seed Our Future guys obviously on the call too, and there are others as well in membership. So we do work with them. We have a patient support group which meets usually every month or two. They were the ones who helped us develop a patient survey that we've been working on that we hope to release shortly, which will have some interesting findings. I can't really go into all of them now because I haven't released them, but what I can say is that we had a really good response rate, about 200 to 250 patients, and it was comparing the illicit market with the legal market, and among other things, and positively, the patients actually were much more in favour of the prescription market on a whole range of areas, including cost as well, actually. It was only product quality where it was slightly behind. So we're doing initiatives like that, the patient survey. We supported the patient conference at the end of last year that Drug Science and MedCan were running, and we hope to continue our involvement this year and onwards. We've got a series of papers that we've had come out in recent months, of which Guy's been involved with some, on driving, on employment. We've got another one on housing coming out. And of course, we've got our Protect Our Patients campaign, which James Smith on the call has been leading on. That is to try and help patients be able to go and see their GPs to get a prescription, not to have to go to see a consultant doctor. So we're pushing hard in many ways, but there's always things we can improve on, though. I mean, for sure. So if people today have some ideas, then I'm very happy to hear them. But we're doing our best to try and support patients. You're part of the supply chain, which means you're part of the industry, and we really value your contribution. We know how important you are as people, as patients, as part of the industry.
Thank you. It's pretty much it for that. Sorry, questions for Guy Coxall, if that's all right. Yeah, Guy.
Yeah.
Hang on. Sorry. All right. Sorry. Yeah.
Are you okay, Sean?
Yeah, I just lost track of
I think there was
question
one
for
last
that.
question just for Mike Morgan Giles, and it was when does the CIC think e-prescribing will be implemented, and do you have any plans to help achieve or expedite this process?
Yeah, so the government's advisory council on misuse of drugs made a recommendation to the government late last year, and that was based on I think NHS England proposing e-prescribing in certain circumstances. So we saw that recommendation the government received. The government replied saying they, in principle, were going to implement that. We have written to them though because it does require a couple of issues. Firstly, it's that it needs to be legal change. But secondly, it also needs to make sure at the back end and some of the IT systems, and some people on the call will be familiar with this who work in the clinics, to make sure the systems actually can work together properly and the data can integrate. So there's a couple of things that need to happen. We are pushing the government on that. We will see where that leads. We'll of course keep industry and patients updated when we know more, but we see it as an important development for the industry, for patients, to save time for people like Mike Barnes having to faff around going down to post boxes, and yeah, it's important development for the industry.
Thank you. Chair, sorry about that. All right, back to Guy. All right, Police Scotland have provided information to us that claims prescriptions are only valid 28 days from the date of prescription. Could you clarify if this is correct and what patients should do to protect themselves?
Yep. Okay. So I'm not exactly sure on what the actual criteria is. That would be more down to the actual clinic and the pharmacy. But from what I understand is, once you've prescribed your medication, you should be able to use that until it's run out, and then you get a new prescription. There is one case I came across, which is a driving case that I'm working with a patient, and he had actually used his prescription for about 3 months before he was stopped. But what it had on his prescription was the letters PRN, and I believe that means prescribed prescribing use when needed. So if it actually has PRN on your prescription under where it says, use 0.2 grams so many times a day or whatever, that means that you can actually use it as and when needed. So there shouldn't actually be a time limit on it. If it doesn't say that, and it does actually say 28 days, then I would imagine that would be the case. So it might be worth maybe talking to your specialist consultant and actually getting them to adapt your prescription for future prescriptions to make sure it says PRN so that you can use it throughout until your prescription runs out, and then there wouldn't be an end date for that. That's the only kind of advice I can give on that.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I want to clarify that as well, Guy, that the prescription with the signature lasts 28 days, and if the dispenser hasn't dispensed it within 28 days, the doctor has to write a new prescription. But once you've got the stuff, as Guy quite rightly said, you can use it for as long as you like. It's only the prescription that's valid for 28 days with a doctor's signature, that's all. So the Police Scotland are wrong in that sense.
Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying that, Mike.
Cheers, thanks. All right, continuing. Recently a freedom of information request was made to a local police force, and it appears the information they gave about driving with cannabis, appeared to be wrong. Yeah, they said that even if we don't appear impaired and we have a blood level of over 2 micrograms, we would be taken to court for it. Is this true? And if not, how can we best deal with an uninformed officer if pulled over?
Okay, so there's 2 parts of the legislation within the Road Traffic Act. One is Section 4, which is driving whilst impaired. So if they actually have evidence that you're impaired, they may do what's called a field impairment test, where they would on the roadside, assess your being able to walk in a straight line, touch your nose, things like that, like you see on the movies. But it's very rarely used these days because in 2015 they adapted the legislation to include Section 5A of the Act, which is driving above a specified limit. So it's true that in most cases, if you're above 2 micrograms per litre of THC in your blood, then you're exceeding the specified limit. But there is a statutory medical defence within that legislation where if you're prescribed that for medical or dental reasons, and as long as you're following your practitioner's guidance and you're not impaired, you have a statutory defence to exceed that limit. Now, that might not necessarily stop you being arrested in the first instance. Unfortunately, what we've come across is that most police officers are completely unaware of the legislative change 5 years ago, and they're not aware of the statutory defence either. In fact, we're even finding that with solicitors, with the Crown Prosecution Service, and even judges. They're unaware of the statutory defence because it's so rarely used, because it normally, in the past, it's covered things like benzodiazepines, opioids, and because you don't have the swabs for that, it's unlikely they would identify it. So because of the swabs and the lack of change of legislation by the Department for Transport in the last 5 years, what you'll find is if you're stopped by the police and if you tell them that you're prescribed medical cannabis or they find your prescription in the vehicle, they're likely to swab you. Now, if they swab you and it comes out positive, you're likely to get arrested and sent to a police station, and you'll have a blood test, and then it often takes about 6 months before the blood test comes through. And if you're above that specified limit, which pretty much every patient guaranteed will be because it stays in your system for so long, then you may be charged and have to go to court. What I would advise on mitigating those circumstances is if you look on the CIC website at the resources section, there's some documents all about driving. There's a patient leaflet that was produced just last year, and anybody can print that off and keep it in their vehicle, ideally with a copy of your prescription if you don't have that on your phone, and also ideally a letter from your consultant describing what the guidance given to you was regarding driving, which is normally basically don't drive if you're impaired. So if you have the evidence to hand and you have that leaflet, on the back of the leaflet, there's a QR code which takes you to another document, which is a guidance for police document. Now, whether they'll actually read all of that is unknown. It depends on the officer, but at least you've given them the information. And what's really important is that from the outset, once they swab you, is to state that you have a medical defence. Once you've stated that, it's their duty to investigate it, and they should do. But that isn't always the case, unfortunately. So I think be prepared, keep all the evidence with you, and that will mitigate the circumstances. If you do get arrested and they do a blood test, what you can do is you can actually put a complaint into the police, that police force, and you can contact them and say, you know, I think I've been wrongly arrested here. I told them I've got a prescription. I provided evidence. They ignored that and they've still progressed. And then send all the information, all the evidence that you passed to the police officer in the first instance, and pass that to the complaints department. And hopefully that will get the investigation what's called NFA'd, which means no further action, and that will hopefully stop it going to a charge, and that will be the end of it. But it is you know, really there needs to be quite a lot of training for police forces around the country. We're already starting to do that, but yeah, it's going to take some time, unfortunately, to get everybody on board and get the police to know what they're doing. What's important as well in the actual guidance for police document, and I would recommend that any patient actually downloads these off the CIC website and has a read through them, because it's got a lot of information there. Nobody should drive if they're impaired, and that's the most important thing. What you'll normally find is if you've vaped your cannabis, the impairing effect should have dissipated within 4 hours. If you take an oil, it can take up to 6 hours for that to dissipate. So it's normally best, if you're not sure, to wait a few hours, make sure that you're, you know, perfectly fit to drive before going anywhere. But in that document as well, there is actually a letter from the Home Office and the Department for Health and Social Care, and that goes into the guidance in identifying a medical cannabis patient. And what they basically say is, if you've got a prescription or you've got the label on your tub or your packet of your cannabis, and a photo ID such as your driving license to validate the name and address, then that should be sufficient evidence that you're a legal prescription holder. Unfortunately, when I've had meetings with the police forces, they're saying, well, you know, the prescription could be forged, or it could be not right, and then they might take the medicine back and weigh it on the scales, and say your prescription says you've been given 10 grams and there's 16 grams in the pot, then they'll think that not all of that's legit. So, it's just being aware of these different things and these different complications. If you understand the legislation, understand what your rights are as a patient and what your rights are in regards to the authorities, that equips you enough to be able to know how to deal with the police in the first instance. So I hope that's helpful.
Oh yeah, brilliant. Yeah, very much so. Thank you very much. Excellent. Thanks. Just a couple more. How easy is it for other solicitors to work and represent clients in the cannabis space? Apparently patients have found it quite difficult to find solicitors to represent them. So where's the best place to find solicitors for this? Or for solicitors to find the most up-to-date information surrounding cannabis laws? Things like that?
Yeah, I mean, this is another instance. So, as I said before, most of the police, most solicitors, the Crown Prosecution Service, and even judges are very unaware of the law, of the legislation for medical cannabis. So, what we find is when a patient's been arrested for driving or possession or something like that, they'll contact several local law firms. And quite often they'll come back and say, oh, well, we can't deal with you, or you don't have a defense, just plead guilty, because they don't realize that the cannabis is actually legal. So again, there needs to be education for all of these law firms. It's not possible for organizations like myself, Seed Our Future, to be able to contact, you've got hundreds of law firms in every area. So there's tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of law firms in the country. So I think this would be something actually for patients to do. So again, go to the resources on the CIC website. If it's a driving or possession charge, again, that document I was referring to, the guidance for police document, if you were to, send a link to the law firm so that they can actually do their due diligence, because law firms aren't supposed to give incorrect advice. So if they say you don't have a defense and you just plead guilty, that's actually professional negligence, and you could actually take them to a civil court for litigation for that. So they have to be very careful. So if you provide them the information, say, look, and be careful with your words as well. Don't just say I'm a medical cannabis user, because they've heard that lots of times before. Say I'm actually prescribed by a specialist consultant. The law changed 5 years ago. I need help with this. Are you going to be able to help me with it? I can send you all the information regarding it. You can always contact Seed Our Future as well, and we can assist. But I think, if patients can actually go out there and educate these law firms, it will eventually spread. Of course, the CIC do have some law firms actually as members who have dealt with cannabis legislation for many years. Some top people like Robert Jappi, I'm sure you've heard of, and other lawyers. So, there are some well-experienced lawyers out there. So if you really get stuck, you can always go to them. But sometimes it's easier, obviously, because it's normally a local magistrate or local Crown Court. Finding a local law firm would be more beneficial for you in most circumstances.
Thank you. All right. So yeah, well, given what you just said, a thought process was thinking, well, perhaps when you're approaching a solicitor, it might be instead of us using a medical user or cannabis, just coming from the a disability discrimination aspect point of view, just approaching them that way instead, or at least personally, to try and get them on board or something. But that
yeah, it's the same thing really. So again, it's the same with civil solicitors, so who work in civil cases. The same sort of issues occur, and I've been working with people who have been threatened with eviction for using their medication in the privacy of their home by the housing associations, venues refusing access, things like that. It is discrimination under the Equality Act. There is a case to be heard in most cases. You can always contact us and we can, have a chat with you and go through it and maybe prepare a letter for some solicitors that you could email to several law firms in your local area. But yeah, it's a very similar case.
Brilliant. Sorry, just one more. Sorry, my.
Okay.
Are you Sean? You okay? Are you okay?
Sorry, yeah, the dogs, my wife's probably walking and the dogs are going.
Oh, it's all right.
I apologize. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. While we're waiting for a minute, we've got one for Sujinder. We've got just one. Somebody's asking about the background of Pure Sun Farms, about a bit of history about Pure Sun Farms and what makes you popular in Canada.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, there are a number of things that have actually made Pure Sun Farms, successful in Canada and certainly now beyond. I think it comes down to our team's cultivation experience, to our greenhouse and our BC provenance, our growing methods, as well as our commitment to safety, consistency, innovation, and improvement. And this is, of course, all on behalf of our customers and our patients as well. In terms of our team, we have growers with decades of experience in agricultural and legacy or pre-legalization cannabis cultivation. We as a company are experts in agricultural product safety, very, very important for patients, of course, and have developed a best-in-class quality system that supports GPP, GACP, and of course, EU GMP requirements. I wish I could all bring you here to see it in person, but we have a high-tech greenhouse that we have actually built a modern growing approach under 1.1 million square feet of glass. So for context, this is approximately 19 Canadian football fields that we're growing cannabis in. But this actually allows us for the precision control of heat, light, water, air, and of course, all the energy the sun brings to maximize the potency and aromatic potential, and of course, the overall health of the plants too. Within this facility, we actually section it into individual growing rooms, and that of course allows us to nurture the plants at every stage of their development. We even have a very high-tech app-based monitoring system that allows our growers to access all aspects and control all aspects of the facility 24/7. And this, of course, ensures that our plants are nourished by exactly what they need at exactly the right time. For those of us that here that haven't been there yet, so we're, of course, located in British Columbia on the west coast of Canada. It's a world-famous area for growing quality cannabis. BC Bud is a globally recognized brand, and we are BC Bud. Our specific location is known for, its ideal climate, for incredible growing conditions for all kinds of cannabis and other greenhouse produce as well, including tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers. Our growers say it best. There is truly nothing like the power of the sun to bring our flowers to their fullest possible potential. And of course, we have an intimate understanding of the site based on being here for more than 15 years and collecting unprecedented climate data on the site, so we can actually work with the environment as well. There was a question, from Sean earlier about, the strains that we have in market. And of course, those are we're working to bring, at a later date. But we actually select those strains based on flavor, potency, consistency, disease resistance, of course, and their ability to thrive within our greenhouse. And of course, we approach every single step of the growing and harvesting, the post-harvesting process with care. And that includes now hang drying, hand harvesting, and hand trimming every single bud as well, which is pretty incredible. We're also advancing cutting-edge research that supports overall plant health, improves flower quality, and of course, setting new scientific standards too. We have a cannabis research license on site, and this allows us to actually conduct human administration trials for the sensory evaluation of cannabis. We also work with a number of local universities too, and that supports research on how we can actually reduce microbial-induced quality reduction in cannabis, and of course, optimizing the overall health of our flower. Ultimately, I do want to say too that sustainability, of course, is I'm sure is important for our patients as well, and it's very important for us here at Pure Sun Farms. We actually reuse every single natural source of power that we can. We actually Within our sun-filled greenhouse, we take in approximately 1,938 hours of sunlight every year. That translates to 1.26 million kilowatts of energy beaming down directly on our plants. We use 97% less land and 85% less water than similarly sized outdoor operations as well. We collect rainwater from the roof of our greenhouse and feed our plants that exclusively from September through to June every year. And of course, we use natural growing mediums to grow our plants as well. We create our feed actually on site as well. It's a proprietary nourishing mixture that of course gives the plants every single element that they need at every single stage of their growth too. And of course, being a licensed producer, we are 100% chemical and pesticide free. So our IPM, or our integrated pest management, is fully biological as well. I mean, overall, I think you can understand that our commitment to quality is paramount. And so we've built this reputation in Canada for high quality, safe, aromatic, and potent products with, I think, great patient appeal as well, adhering to all guidelines. And every single batch is lab tested to ensure that we're delivering safe and quality cannabis every single time. So James, of course, we do have our 3 products now in market, our Pink Kush, our Jet Fuel Gelato, and our D-Burger as well. I can only see the panelists here, but I'm wondering if anyone's had a chance to try these as well.
Some people have had them. We're not really allowed to discuss, specific strains or anything like that. So I don't want to get anyone in any trouble. But
that sounds great.
I'll thank you very much for your answers. It's absolutely fantastic to learn more about Pure Sun Farms. I'm just going to pass back to Sean now because he's back, if that's okay.
Of course.
Are you
Thank
back?
you, Sarah.
Are you back? Or do you want me to carry on, Sean? I can carry on if that's fine.
Where were you? Where did you?
I just stepped in where you left. I think he was midway through speaking to Guy Coxall. You was on question.
I think we have just one more question for Guy, if that's all right.
Yeah, number 6.
Yeah.
Question 6 for Guy.
Is it possible? Can you shed any light on legal standing of patients using their their prescription cannabis while being treated as an inpatient in hospitals? Do you have any?
Yes, I mean, I have come across some cases where patients have been refused to use their medication inside the hospital. And I've had cases where people have been through surgery and, they're carrying, liquids and having to walk for 10 minutes downstairs, down through lifts, to an outside smoking area to use their medication. And that's absolutely disgraceful. It's unreasonable and it's unethical. Can you hear me okay? Because I don't know if I keep blanking out.
Yeah, we can hear
you. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that it sounds to me that hospitals aren't, even though it's a special medicine, it's still a licensed, it's still a legal prescribed medication from a specialist consultant. So I just don't understand why they're treating it differently, other than that it's stigma and discrimination, and they're not used to the vaporization aspect, I suppose, of medicines. It's never happened before, and they're often worried about, it setting off fire alarms or affecting patients in the vicinity or anything like that. But actually, there's all the evidence to show the opposite of that. So it's perfectly safe. There's actually a document I have. If anybody wants it, they can. I should put it on the website, really. But it was a clinical trial in a 3-by-2 meter room with 2 medical staff, and they were administering vaporized cannabis to a patient for like 2.5 hours, and then they did a blood test on the staff afterwards, and there were no detectable cannabinoids whatsoever. So that just illustrates that even in a small confined room, it's not going to pass to the next person, and they're not going to get high from it, which is obviously their concern. So I don't know quite where we would go with this, but I think it needs to come from somebody somewhere high up in the NHS to disseminate the information down to the staff to make them aware of medical cannabis prescriptions, the vaporization process, and make sure that patients can, be able to prescribe while they're in hospital, because they can be there for several days, weeks, months even. And if they're not able to use their prescribed medication, it's going to cause serious issues and concerns for their health. You know, it's do no harm is the oath of a doctor. So, you know, if they're prescribed a medication from a specialist, especially, then they should make sure that they have access to that medication. Same with custody suites in a prison, in a police station. You know, they're refused access to it. We are actually now getting some police forces allowing that in the actual custody suite so that they can medicate. So again, it's one of these things that's going to take a bit of time and a bit of effort to change things, but we will get there eventually.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Guy. I heard when I came back in, Sajinder was speaking about Pure Sun Farms' operation. Was that a question you asked, Sarah, or should I just move
Yeah,
on to...
no, it was just one we had to fill because it was a bit of
just
dead air
fill
at the
in
time.
All right, sorry. So questions for James Smith. That's okay. Hi, James.
Go ahead.
What attributes do you look at when deciding what grade your cannabis products will be placed in? What are the things that would exclude a product from being standard or craft level, for example?
Well, there's a number of factors. One is the genetic lineage of the plant, who's growing it, what it's grown in, how large the flowers are, the level of visible trichromes, the percentage of terpenes that are available in a Eurofins post-sterilization certificate of analysis. There is the percentage of the THC, the percentage of the minors, how many minors are in that plant. What we've discovered is that the greater amount of minor cannabinoids that are available inside of the COA, efficacy seems to be stronger. I can't make any scientific or medical statements, but anecdotal evidence suggests that increased minors produces greater efficacy and in fact could even creates lower levels of THC can be present, higher levels of minors can be present, and efficacy can appear to be stronger. So we look for unique genetics that are not necessarily present in the marketplace. And we also look to the historic market performance in Canada. How did it do in Canada? Do people love it? Do people keep going back for it month after month? Because that's what happens with the producers we're working with here. There's a whole set of data that goes back years that shows that it's working for people. And so that's also very important.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, moving on. A question for Mike Barnes. Regarding seeds and stalks, do you personally consider the inclusion of such matter as acceptable? As to what degree is there like a threshold of acceptability for things like that?
Yeah, thanks. I think that, you know, we're talking about medicine here, and medicine needs to be held to the highest possible quality. We've got to remember it's not a pharmaceutical, it's a biological, but that doesn't mean it's a lower standard. It should be held to the highest possible biological standard. And I think we've heard from Sajinder about a company that really takes that sort of quality really seriously. And I think in the medicine in this market, we need to take every possible plant that and oil for that matter that comes into the UK seriously as the best possible medicine. I'm not a grower. I don't know how realistic it is to get every single seed and stalk out of every single product. Perhaps Sajinder can comment on that. But basically, yeah, we need the best quality products because this is a medicine and we deserve the best medicine for our patients. Simple as that, really.
Excellent. Thank you. You've heard of the yellow card scheme for the
Yeah.
Right. Are your views on it to report the presence?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you agree
So
with that? Are you
those
will it be improved or sorry?
Sorry, Sean. Yeah, probably everyone does know, but the yellow card scheme is set up for patients and doctors, more particularly doctors, but anyone can do it to report serious adverse events to the MHRA, so they can see if there's any pattern emerging from some new medicine that comes out or causing a lot of people a particular problem. That's a good way of detecting that problem is emerging. So it's a very good system. I have to say that it's meant to be for serious adverse reaction. So if there's a sort of, however you define it, a more minor complaint about a product you've received, then perhaps the first port of call should be the dispensary from which it came from, rather than the yellow card system. But how you determine whether it's serious or less serious or minor is up to you or up to the doctor. But it's there for serious adverse events and should be used for that. Otherwise, the powers that be monitoring the whole thing over the whole country won't know there's an issue arising. So I think it's a very good system. It stood the test of time for several decades now. And I don't know when it came in, first of all, but it's been around for a long time. And it's a tried and tested system that should be used when there are serious issues to be reported, basically. Yeah.
Mike, would you mind if I just added something to that?
Sure, you carry on, Guy. Yeah.
Just because the question was around bugs, molds, or seeds in the medicine, that isn't a rationale to contact the yellow card scheme, and I've concern that because this is a newly emerging industry, and the yellow card scheme by the MHRA is very seriously taken, and it's supposed to be, as Mike says, about adverse side effects, not the state of your medication. And if you end up getting too many yellow card schemes, it's going to actually ruin the reputation of the industry, and it could actually put everything back a little bit. So I just wanted to make a point of that.
I think that's a very good point, Guy. It's not really for quality, if you like. It's for serious adverse events. And I know some people, and it's perhaps a controversial issue, are using the yellow card scheme because they don't like the commercialization of the cannabis industry. And it is a perfectly good political point that if the MHRA get a whole load of yellow cards about cannabis, they're going to look, should we have supported this industry? Is it going to go in the right direction? I'm not in any way saying don't report serious adverse events. Absolutely not, the opposite. But it should be used for what it's meant to be used for. As Guy's quite rightly said, it's for serious adverse events, not, if you like, minor complaints.
I'll just jump in just to say that, but although we have been advising people to yellow card things, but that have been, but in my eyes, say if I've had a product that had seeds, and I didn't really notice that it had seeds because I use an automatic grinder. So by the time I'd vaped it, I was ill, I was coughing, I ended up with a chest infection just because it is not safe to inhale like constant loads amounts of seeds. It's not a vapable matter. And we've approached the pharmacies, we've approached the companies that are producing this medicine, and nobody is doing anything about it. So what are we left with as patients if that medicine is making us ill, other than yellow carding it? That's my kind of...
Well, I'd count that as a serious adverse event, to be honest, if you're getting ill from it. Yeah. And if the pharmacies aren't listening, then I think it's a perfectly good use of the yellow card system. I would just say don't use it for minor things, but how you define minor things is very difficult. There's no hard and fast definition, is there? It's very difficult.
Sorry, carry on, Sean.
No, that's fine. Brilliant. Thank you. How close are we to getting medical cannabis on the NHS?
How long have we got? That's a big question, isn't it? I think first of all, I think everyone on this call would agree it's very sad that we're having to use the private sector. There's still 5 NHS prescriptions in 5 years is an utter disgrace, and 35,000 in the private sector. Private sector's fine. It enables 35,000 people to be prescribed who wouldn't otherwise be prescribed. So I'm not against that, but I'm very much for the NHS, and I'm sure everyone on this call is. It should be a medicine available to everyone free on the National Health Service, and that's what many of us are trying to do. When will it get there? To be honest, I'm sure we don't want to get too party political, do we? But it won't happen under this government. I honestly don't think it's a priority for any other government at the moment, assuming that Labour might get in. I don't think it's a priority for them. I think for cannabis, the cannabis only, and I'm certainly not going to discuss defence or Home Office policies or economics, but the best result for cannabis would be a hung parliament with a Green, Lib Dem, SNP, Labour coalition. Because some of those smaller parties are more pro-cannabis to get it properly. I'm only talking about medically at the moment at all, get it properly accessible medically. I think we'll stand a better chance with that end result. I think it will come for Labour. I think probably 2 or 3 years ago, I said, we'll all be sorted out in 2 or 3 years. and 2 or 3 years later, nothing has happened. So I'm not going to give a time limit to it ever again. I think it is more likely to happen under a Labour or coalition government. It will not happen so much under the Conservative government, who have no great interest in. They turn around and say, well, we changed the law, which was true. It's now up to those doctors to sort it out. And that is partly true, but it's the government could do a lot more to make it more medically accessible than they are at the moment. So that's a long answer with no answer in that, I'm afraid. Because I don't know, nor does anyone else know. I think all I can say is that many on this call will continue trying to push the agenda to make public awareness better, doctor awareness better, patient awareness better, so we can, all of us in our own different ways, push the government to make it much more medically accessible and finally onto the NHS.
Thank you. How has legislation changed your approach to campaigning? What changes would you still like to see?
That's another very good question. I'm not a born campaigner. I mean, the law changed because of campaigning of others, particularly my friend and colleague Hannah Deacon and the Alfie Dingley story that I'm sure is familiar to you. She's perhaps the expert campaigner. I think what I've learned from being associated with that campaign is 2 or 3 things. First of all, everyone on the same side needs to speak with the same voice. And I think that's why I set up the Cannabis Industry Council. You know, probably everyone on this call, if you ask how would you do this, how would you change the law, you probably get a dozen or 20 different answers, all subtly different, all slightly arguing with each other. But basically, I think we're all on the same page. We all want this medicine accessible to those that can get it on the National Health Service. We come at it from different places, from different agendas, but I would make a plea to everyone in this space. Let's try and put our own internal differences to a little bit to one side, if we can, and work together to get this properly accessible in the National Health Service. And that's one, I think, as Hannah often says to me, you know, there's nothing that governments like better than a campaign that's split internally. And so let's talk with one voice. If we can get that single voice, so much the better. So that's one thing I've learned about campaigning, is to speak from the same platform, even if we're slightly different from our own sort of emphases. The other thing I've learned is that government does not listen to evidence. It doesn't listen to science. It listens to the media. And the more I've learned, I don't want to write any more academic papers, thank you very much, because no one listens to them, except academics who are boring and not going to change the law. We need to access the media and parliamentarians directly, of course. You know, the law can change if the Daily Mail writes a supportive article, let's be honest. And that's what we need to do. We need to get public awareness better so the public can get through to the media and the media can get through to government. You can say that's the wrong way for the law to change. Why should the Daily Mail, I keep picking on the Daily Mail, bless it, but why should the Daily Mail change the law? It should be, you know, government or science or people lobbying their MPs. It does work to an extent, but it mainly works through media, and we need media to be on our side and talk, therefore, with the same sort of voice, so the media listens and the government listens to the media. Another long answer, I'm sorry about that, Sean, but that's what I've learned from campaigning, I think, is unification of media.
Thank you very much. No, excellent answers. Sorry. Do you think we should be following more like the Canadian term, the UK following like the Canadian model in terms of medical and recreational?
That is another very good question. I never talk about recreational legalization because I want to get the medical right first. So I've never publicly talked about that. I keep people, you ask me and I never tell anybody. But I think the Canadian model, and we've got Canadians on this call, so they're perhaps better than I am to talk about it. I think the slight problem we have to realize is that if it goes totally open to everybody, there is a danger in that the doctors who are reluctant anyway will turn around and say, we can't be bothered with this. Go down to your dispensary and get it yourself. And the doctors could and have in Canada, I think I'm right in saying, wash their hands of it, because they don't need to be scientific. They don't need to learn about it because people can just pop down their own and get it themselves. It's also reduced the scientific accumulation of data, because companies can't be bothered to do it because they don't need to do it because they can sell their stuff around the corner. So there is very much a downside from the medical point of view of that Canadian model. There are upsides to it as well. It gets more accessible to everybody. But some people, not everybody, but some people need guidance and medical support. They want to go to their doctor and find out about it, so they want the doctors to learn about it and be informed about it. And maybe therefore the Canadian model is not quite right. But I'd love to. I'm not Canadian. James is Canadian. Sujinder is Canadian. Why don't we just ask them what they think about it?
Yeah, sure, James.
So what I would suggest is that, certainly I'm Canadian. I don't think Sujinder would argue with me that we both think that recreational cannabis is a wonderful thing for our country. But I think it's also important to remember that Canada had legal medical cannabis for 19 years before it was legalized for recreational purposes. Okay, and I think it's a very important distinction. And the reason why it took 19 years to get it legalized is it took 19 years to get the stigmatization across the country to a point where it was politically safe to suggest, some would even argue, get a politician elected prime minister on that single platform. I know myself personally, who has a degree in political science, is obsessed with politics, and to a large degree grew up in the Liberal Party at conventions. I had nothing to do with the federal campaign for over 20 years. And when Justin Trudeau said that he was going to legalize recreational cannabis, I and my brother and lots of people I know volunteered to put signs in the ground, pick up the signs, to hand out leaflets. We volunteered to get rid of a government that took, actually the truth of the matter is, took medical cannabis away from the grower model and handed it over to 5 companies of the names that people know in this country. Some of them are still in business. So it was a long march to create the awareness. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Sujinder, you may have better statistics, you may have a better grasp on this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, is that I think it was 1.6% of the population was prescribed medical cannabis. And by 2016, I think it was. But 2012, the rules changed. There was federally licensed providers. I think maybe it was 2014 that the federal government allowed vets to have their medical cannabis compensated for PTSD and other ailment and pain. And that was a huge boon to the industry, was creating the awareness inside of the overall all across Canada, because many people who were not using cannabis or were living in communities where cannabis was still highly stigmatized, they now had friends and family that were using it for medical purposes, and the whole cannabis is a devil stigma disappeared. Because where I live on the West Coast and where Sujinder lives, it's basically been legal for 40 years. I mean, it has been, there was 300 shops that were selling cannabis illegally in Vancouver in 2014. It was like they were everywhere with signs out front. Imagine walking around London and there's a shop every other block that sells cannabis. The Vancouver government gave up on prosecution, on even trying to. In fact, what they did was they actually made everybody pay $50,000 Canadian to get a permit to operate an illegal shop. How crazy is that? But it was the medical cannabis movement. It was the growth of medical cannabis that created the awareness, that created the destigmatization, that eventually led to the general support across the country to allow recreational cannabis to be a thing. I'm sorry, Sujinder, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
Thank you very much. I'd like to actually share, personally as well, if it's all right. I started certainly my experience with cannabis, like many other, consumers did, from a pure, recreational, standpoint. And of course, this is when I was much younger. But it was actually in purchasing cannabis from these stores that James mentioned, that were municipally regulated, in and around 10 years ago, that allowed me to open the door of understanding to the potential effectiveness truly of the plant as well. My wife was experiencing a very late onset postpartum depression. She had a number of issues, and our experience in purchasing different cultivars of cannabis, again, really opened up that avenue for the potential of medical and therapeutic benefits there as well. And certainly in Canada, legalization is far from perfect. But at the same time, what it has allowed is for more consumers, whether they be recreational or medical consumers, to purchase safe and lab-tested products that are free from any contaminants, that are free from pesticides, which of course have had no testing in terms of how they might affect the human body once combusted and consumed. So this is certainly something that I'm very grateful for the Canadian market, that we can deliver these safe products to our consumers here domestically, and of course to our patients abroad as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you all very much. Just a couple of general questions to carry on. As patients with interest in promoting medicine and helping guide others towards seeing if they're eligible and for annual benefits from cannabis, is there any support available to help set up like dry herb vape lounges, groups, where patients can come together and, consume their medication, freely, safely, I suppose? Any interest in helping to help our campaign, the Normalise It campaign as well? If that is, you're just putting that out there for people.
I can answer that if you like, at least from a
sure, go.
perspective. Yes, so we, excuse me, we're now welcoming sort of prescription consumption venues into membership. Obviously, ones that follow the law and abide by sensible practices. So, and we're keen as industry body to work, with those who are interested in setting up shops, and obviously also with venues to make sure that they understand the law, they can create a viable business, and they can help patients. So that's something that's very much on our agenda, and we welcome it as long as venues are keeping within the law.
Brilliant, thank you. Can we expect to see more CBD only strains or more balanced THC CBD strains available?
Yes.
Excellent, brilliant, excellent. And do you think patients should be enjoying their medication? And you think that stigma prevents people from admitting that?
That's Mike, you want to answer?
Which Mike?
You can have it.
That's an interesting question. I mean, my view as a doctor, I suppose, is the primary aim of cannabis as a medicine is a medicine. I mean, the top thing is if you're taking it to help a symptom or disease state, it should be helping that. If at the same time you could enjoy it, good luck to you. I wouldn't put enjoyment as the top of my prescribing thing. I want you to enjoy this. Whether it helps your condition or not is irrelevant. No, it's the other way around. So I'd be medicine first, all the other stuff very much second.
So as a producer, representing producers, a distributor, anxiety is one of the top problems in this country with patients consistently, whether it's pain from anxiety, whether it's anxiety from not sleeping, whether it's anxiety from mental health issues. And medicines that can create euphoria are medicines. Euphoria is a medicine in my mind. And so if we can provide products to patients and they gain a sense of euphoria, if that's what we call joy, then I think that for me personally, I want my medicine to give me euphoria because it's the honey that makes the medicine go down so much better. And when you look to what's working in Canada and the recreational market, which is a market that we can look at, and we can look at the statistics, and you speak with the breeders who have been doing this for decades, and you ask them, do people want to be falling asleep on a couch drooling, or do they want to feel joy? And the general rule of thumb is when people are given euphoria and joy, it's a better performing product in the marketplace. So if we can combine that with medicine, I think that's a fair place to start. That's my goal anyways, as a producer, to bring joy to the patients. Am I allowed to say?
If I could just maybe add something to that, I think there's the distinction between recreational and medicine, and this is where the line is blurred with cannabis because it's a botanical product. It's not a synthesized or isolated pharmaceutical product. But if you look at somebody who, for instance, has social anxiety and they use benzodiazepines to treat that, they may go out and spend some time with some friends, have a chat, and they're feeling comfortable and relaxed because of that benzodiazepine. Well, you can have exactly the same experience with cannabis, although it's probably safer. And you know, cannabis is it is, you know, is it a nutrition? Is it a medicine? You know, let food be thy medicine, let medicine be thy food was Aristotle, I think. You know, it is a complicated subject, and I think, you know, if you enjoy your medicine, you should enjoy your medicine. But I think, you know, everybody who uses cannabis, there's like 2.6 million people apparently who use cannabis in the UK. Now, 1.8 million of them use it for medicinal use, even though they may not be able to get a prescription. That's 69%. So the statistics would show that the majority of people who use cannabis primarily are using it medicinally, but they may enjoy it as well. And and the other 30% who think they're using it recreationally may be using it medicinally without realizing it. So it's one of those conundrums, I think. And but I don't think anybody should be ashamed of enjoying their medicine or ashamed of the medicine that they use. You know, if you've got a medical cannabis prescription, you know, use it as prescribed, and if it brings wellness, happiness, and well-being to you, then that's all great too.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else want to jump in, chime in? No? I think then we're gonna just pass it over to just questions from the chat, maybe, I believe.
Yeah, I think Sky's going to take over now. So yeah, pass over to Sky. Thank you, Sean.
Okay. No, thank you all for my being patient with me. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Hi, everyone. So I've got 14 questions here. So the first one is saying, when do some farms plan on bringing vape carts to the UK?
James, I think this one's for you.
We are.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I thought
Sorry, I wasn't sure. I was. We're, as previously noted, bringing a new product to market takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of diligence, a lot of stability testing, and these are discussions that we've had for a long time, and we are working towards bringing an array of products. I can't really say more than that, but it is a work in progress.
Okay, thank you. So there's a question saying, Police Scotland say that our medication is only valid from 28 days from the date of medication. Would our medication become illegal after 28 days late dispatch? I think that's similar to the UK one that we had before.
Yeah.
But for Scotland.
Yeah, to say again, it's the prescription that needs to be filled within 28 days. Once you've got the medication, then you can, you know, until it goes out of date, you can use it as long as you like. So the Police Scotland, I'm afraid, are simply wrong.
How would we go against challenging that?
Ring Guy.
Ring Guy.
Sorry. Yeah, just contact me, seedorfuture@mail.com, and I'll be happy to help. I would like to see some sort of, Mike, do you know if there's any guidance or literature regarding that, or something in how I would get something in writing to confirm that? Because the police don't always believe everything that we say.
We would like to be able to point to a policy or something. We've been contacting a number of police forces, and excuse me, they've all got wrong information. So we need to somehow get all the wrong information together, and then we can have like a plan of action of how we solve that. But nowhere has the right information.
That's sadly very true. Yeah, it just needs some cooperation, perhaps between CEDAR Future and MCPA or whatever it is. Not to me to dictate that. To put out.
If anybody was able to
to
provide us with some funding, I would be very interested to see what sort of training we could provide to the police.
Yeah, I did a training session with Devon and Cornwall Police a few weeks ago, in collaboration with Samskara platform. And I was talking to all the drug experts and the driving experts, and you know, they are actually implementing training across the police force now. As I said, they're allowing it to be used in custody. It does move, but it's very slow, and they're not really able to pass it on to other forces. So it means, you know, there's 42 forces, I believe, in England and Wales alone. So it's going to take some time. Going back to the actual question, though, on the prescriptions, I would maybe consider an FOI to the Department for Health and Social Care, or maybe getting something in writing from your specialist consultant to say, explain the situation with the prescription, or even if we could get maybe a clinic to actually write something. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but I'd be happy to work with the MCPA, and I'm sure Mohammed from Samskara would also be happy to get involved as well. But between us, we could get some evidence somewhere.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you. So we've got a question for, is it Sajinder? Is that how you say your name? Can you tell me a bit of the history about Pure Sun Farms and how you see things moving in the future?
For sure. Yeah, I think I touched a little bit on this earlier, but I mean, certainly we, you know, as a company, we broke ground here in 2017, converting our greenhouse from tomatoes into cannabis. And it has been quite the journey. I mean, I've certainly been here for 5 years right now, and have seen innumerable changes. Currently, we're very focused on our quality and our safety. Again, converting our entire growing operation. And again, you know, we grow under such a large canopy of glass. We can have growing anywhere in the facility upwards of 250,000 cannabis plants growing at any given time, 250,000 plants. And yet, all of these plants are touched and are monitored many times a day by humans. There's very little automation actually at Pure Sun Farms, unless it is a very tried and tested operation. Almost everything is done manually. And I think philosophically, we've rejected automation. The more manual we are, the more we're able to innovate and improve. And that's, again, you know, what we're focused on as well. Of course, always trialing new cultivars in the greenhouse right now, probably one of the largest trials ever going on at Pure Sun Farms. So we're excited to see what that's going to deliver as well.
Excellent, thank you. I've got a question here. I presume it's for Guy Coxall to do with driving. Should we be expected to be arrested? That's what it says, so I presume it's to do with driving.
Yeah, so with that meeting with Devon and Cornwall Police the other day, yes, is the simple answer. I was quite surprised myself. What you'll find is within the legislation in Section 6 of the Road Traffic Act, there's 4 different possibilities of reasons, reasonable excuses, should I say, of where an officer can administer a roadside swab. 2 of them are to do with the officer having a reasonable suspicion that they have a drug in their body. So if you don't tell them that you're prescribed to cannabis, if they've just stopped you over for your light out or something like that, it'd be best not to say anything unless they ask you. So that can mitigate harms. If they believe you're impaired, that's fair enough. If you're in an accident, fair enough. The other one, which I have objection to, is 6.4b of the Road Traffic Act, which is they can swab for any moving traffic offence. So that means they can pull you over because you've got a light out, or you've got a dirty number plate, or you forgot to indicate, or any number of reasons. And I don't think that's proportionate. And I believe it's actually a breach of human rights under Article 8, which is a right to private life. So I'm actually looking to challenge this in the courts sometime this year. I'm not sure exactly when. I don't have a month as yet. But what we're looking at is there's a very similar case law from the European Court on Human Rights from 2010, which was in relation to Section 44 of the Terrorism Act. And that was regarding the police going around London, stopping people photographing churches and things like that, and then stopping and searching them without any reasonable cause under the Terrorism Act. Now, they actually won this case back in 2010, and it was found to be a breach of the Article 8 private life. So I think because it's a stop and search, and they're actually going into your bodily fluids to search, which is quite personal. And if they don't have reasonable cause, there's nothing to do with believing that you've got a drug in your system or that you're a danger to road users, which is the legitimate aim of the Act itself, then that is a breach of human rights under Article 8. So that will be challenged at some point in the near future. And hopefully that will remove that toy from the police, or at least that part of the toy, so that they can't abuse that power. And then the other things are proportionate. So it's all to do with proportionality, but yeah, that is kind of what Seed Our Future are hoping to work on in the very near future.
Thank you. I think it's a really big worry for all of us drivers. It's yeah, I thank you for your.
What you've got to remember though is you do have a statutory defence. You are allowed to drive as long as you're sensible and you're not impaired. And although it may be, quite scary and quite inconvenient and stressful, you will get through it. And we're here to support you. Other platforms like Sanskara are there to support you, the CIC with the documents. So, there is a support network building up. And, we are getting there, and hopefully we will get the legislation fine-tuned so that it will mitigate those harms to patients. Because you don't get this with the other controlled drugs in the legislation, benzodiazepines, opioids. Why should it happen with medical cannabis patients? So again, it's all these slow-moving tracks, but we will get there in the end.
Brilliant. Thank you for your work around that. There's a question. Oh, sorry. I think Emma's got her hand up. Emma, are you unmuted?
Oh, sorry. I did intend to put my hand down because Guy covered what I wanted to ask.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, thank you, Emma. So we've got a question. I presume it's for Guy. Do you have people that work pro bono with these legal issues? Or do you know any companies that do pro bono discrimination help?
I don't, unfortunately. I generally work with patients on where they go litigant in person in most cases. They actually represent themselves with the support of Seed Our Future. I don't have many contacts, but there are, as I said, some of the CIC members are law firms. I believe some of them have in the past done some pro bono work. So it's worth asking around. But you can sometimes, it's surprising what you can do on yourself in a court, especially with some, if you've got all the evidence of clear discrimination in the workplace, for example, it's quite easy to put that together. Organizations like these patient organizations can help put the evidence file together, and then you can represent yourself with some support, like a McKenzie friend or something like that. But yeah, it's very difficult to find a lawyer who will work for free. It's part of part of their industry. It's money.
So message sorry, so I can't say your name, sorry. Sajinder, is it? Yes, Sajinder. It says, I think he worked with on the legalization in BC, Canada. What do you think the UK can learn from this when dealing with our own legislative challenges?
Yes, I did work for the BC government to help set up cannabis operations here in the province. And again, I worked primarily from a content creation and education process. But certainly, one thing that I can share is listen to the consumers, listen to the patients. There are far too many companies, whether it be in cannabis or otherwise, that think they know better than their potential customers. And I know that that's something that's very important for us here at Pearson Farms. James, you can probably speak further to this too. But the truth is that if we're not listening to the patients and delivering what they want from an efficacy or even from a base level aromatic or potency perspective, then we're not delivering what we are intended here to do.
Patience, patience, patience. That's what drives all the decisions that we make. Those are the only way, it's the only way you can look at it. If you look at it any other way, you're fooling yourself as to what this is all about.
Great, thank you. Got a question. Who picks which strains you will grow? Why do you choose the ones you do, and are some more hard to grow than others? Yeah, to anyone, Sajinder or James.
Are you pointing at me? It's hard to tell, but I'm going to say yes. You know, one of the cultivars that we're very proud of here is one called Pink Kush. Again, it just has of course launched in the UK. I'll tell you a little story. It was actually batch 001 that we grew here at Pearson Farms, and yet we did not release her into the market anywhere for approximately 2 years. Now, I mean, Pink Kush has actually since become the #1 best-selling cultivar in Canada, and not just Pink Kush, but Pearson Farms Pink Kush. It is a very old cut that we actually received from a grower who grew it for decades before on Vancouver Island, again, just off the west coast of Canada. And I think why it's become popular is because of its aromatics. I mean, she's sweet, like butterscotch or vanilla. She's a little peppery, white pepper, not black pepper. And certainly she does have a certain, you know, gassy, a petrol finish, you know, on the end. But as powerful as she is, she's also very sensitive to certain diseases that, if not controlled through defoliation or proper nutrients, will allow those to proliferate. So really, how we choose cultivars is about those aromatics, is about that consistency of the potency of the colors, unique lineages for sure. But at the end of the day, they really must thrive within our greenhouse. And that's how we pick them. I mean, of course, the ones that we're looking for, the attributes that we're looking for are, and James can attest this too, are guided by the input from our patients and from our customers as well. So always on the lookout for something new. But we work with with them at the farm to make sure that they come out again as our customers are seeking.
Great, thank you. I've got a question actually. Are high CBD or balanced strains, are they harder to grow than high THC, low CBD strains?
No, they're no harder. They showcase a little bit differently, mind you. We have a number of them we're working with at the farm right now, and no, they're not really any harder to grow. They're actually beautiful, truly beautiful, aromatic as well, delicious.
Thank you. I love your passion. It comes through, I think.
Thank you.
So we've got another one for you. Will we be getting any of the other strains from your Canadian range in the UK?
James?
Again, we are working the next line that we're bringing through to the UK is I'm not sure if I'm even allowed to say it, is a brand that's associated with the same management team as Pure Sun Farms, and there will be 3 new genetics that will be coming to the country, and the prices will be even actually lower than the Pure Sun Farms pricing, and that will be around a sizing issue. Because we're working with very reasonable people at Pure Sun Farms, and they understand that there's value proposition that we're trying to give to the patients. We're trying to bring even lower costs, you know, similar quality medicines to the British people. There will be a sizing difference in the size of the flowers, and we believe that the efficacy remains as good. But we also recognize that people in the market will expect a smaller flower to have a lower price. So we want to bring and 2 of them to me are very exciting genetics that I don't think I could probably speak about. But one of them is in the mid-teens, is a lower THC product that has a genetic lineage that was successful for a decade in Canada with PTSD and anxiety patients. And another is a very historical, we can't call it a landrace strain, but a historical post-landrace cross that is being crossed with another landrace cross that is, so it's very kind of OG. It's not, but 18,000 parents. I think that the idea is to bring sort of classic known genetics to the marketplace that people who are my age would know. And I think there's an advantage for the breeder for it because they have a lot of history and knowledge of these plants because they've been grown for so long. They're just not necessarily popular in the Canadian recreational market anymore because they perhaps have slightly lower THC percentages or have older names. But we are actively working with Pure. We work with this group every single week. This isn't like we're gonna like, oh, we like them, we're taking this and there's constant compliance calls, there is constant product development calls. This is an active relationship between ourselves, Pure Sunfarms, and you, the patients. This is a living relationship. And anybody's welcome to go onto their website and tell me what they think. I've already had lots of suggestions given to me, but just please understand that to do it correctly takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a great deal of money to do it correctly. So we're listening. We're not listening by not being able to have marmalade available to you next week. There's a process that has to be undertaken, and we are certainly listening and want to hear what you have to say. And we will engage with Sujender and his team to work towards bringing those things here.
Excellent, thank you. Another one for Guy. Police Scotland guidance say officers need to check the date of prescriptions when checking their validity. Why is this a factor if our prescription can be used without a time restriction?
Well, yeah, as was discussed before, I wasn't sure of the exact legislation until Mike mentioned it before, but it seems that, the prescription is very different to the medicine. So the medicine can be used until it's run out. The prescription is different. So as we said, we'll try our best to work out a best way of getting that evidence across, whether it's an FOI to the Department for Health and Social Care, or whether it's through a clinic or a specialist consultant. But yeah, we'll try and get something in writing to confirm that, and then that can be disseminated to the police. But yeah, it's the best we can do at the moment. But it's good to know that that isn't an issue, because it does come up quite often with cases, and you can argue that with the police now, especially if you watch this, or even if this is on YouTube, pass this to the police and get them to have a look.
That's a good idea. We do.
You've got Professor Mike Barnes, who is the leading expert. You don't get much better authority, really.
Absolutely. So we've got a question for either Mike B or Guy. Are there any active lobbyists pushing the agenda for medical cannabis in the government? Is this an avenue we can explore? Anyone?
I can answer that briefly if you want. There is a thing called the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Medical Cannabis under Prescription, is its proper title. For those that don't know, All-Party Parliamentary Groups are groupings of MPs and peers on particular subjects. There's a lot of them. There's 100 plus on every topic you can imagine. But there is one on medical cannabis and also another one related on drug policy. The medical cannabis one is chaired by Tonia Antoniazzi, who's the Labour MP for the Rhondda. By definition, they have to have cross-party and peer membership. So there's it's got, I think it's 6 Labour front bench people on it or associated with it, which is very good for the future. And they are addressing particular issues. At the moment, they're mainly focusing on the big issue with child prescribing for children, which we haven't talked about tonight because there's lots of other things to talk about, but it is a major issue. The Medical Cannabis Clinician Society is the secretariat of that, along with Voltfas, which is very useful. So yes, that is directly a route into government. It's probably the main lobbying route into government, to be quite honest. Yeah, I don't know if Guy or Mike has any other, or James had any other points to add on that, really, but that is the mechanism we mainly use.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I've got much to add to that, except I did go to a APPG for drug reform a few years ago when I was compliance director for the CTA, and some MPs did tell me that most of the lobbying is actually done by the pharmaceutical industry, so that may be what's holding things up a little bit.
I couldn't possibly comment, Guy, which you may think that.
If I can put my prescription cannabis subcommittee hat on.
Please do.
The biggest challenge that we face is awareness and some regulatory hurdles. The reason why we face these challenges is that we as an industry, and I know this is going to maybe come as a surprise to some of the people and some of the patients that are listening to this, we are struggling as an industry to pay ourselves, let alone hire consultants for £5,000 a month to help build awareness inside of the Home Office and inside of the MHRA. We are competing against a $1 trillion a year pharmaceutical and alcohol industry that does not want us to exist. Every patient that comes into this marketplace is a patient that is no longer taking opioids or benzodiazepines or other sleeping pills, or they're drinking less alcohol because they don't need the alcohol to manage their anxiety or their after work frustration to the same level that they do when they take medical cannabis. The most recent stat that I saw that was the most terrifying stat that they should look at is Stats Canada, which I don't know whether you look at that, Sajinder, but noted that for every dollar spent on recreational cannabis, 75 cents was not spent on alcohol. Think about that as a statistic. Terrifying if you're an alcohol industry. So we have to accept that there are forces that are opposed to us. And there's nothing in the world more that I would love to do than throw £10,000 a month at a real PR firm that has real access to the Daily Mail. We need to get the Daily Mail on side. We need to get the Sun
Good
on
luck
side.
with that.
We need to get the Mirror on side. We need to get the sad thing is the Telegraph is more supportive than the Times. You know, so because you've got this Murdoch media empire that has a complete ban on the discussion of any good news stories about cannabis. It is rooted deeply in that company. And so we've got to find a way to work around that. And one of the ways is as was suggested to me by someone on a train to Amsterdam, is go talk to the senior civil servants. So, but the problem is we're all running companies that are just trying to be stood up right and to serve patients and to make sure that the orders are getting out as fast as they can and has it cleared customs. It's very hard to focus in on the larger picture when you don't have the resources to commit to those campaigns that we really need to get. We need to get the awareness into the hands of the British people. We need to make vets aware that their PTSD and their chronic pain can be managed. We need to make people aware that who have sleeping disorders that their lives are being ruined by benzos when they don't need to be. Right. And we need to do as industry, we are continuing to improve. I don't think it's fair to say that there's one company in the space that hasn't improved themselves over the last 4 years. We're all trying to be the best we can. And even though we may not always deliver what we want to deliver, all of my competitors and all of my colleagues are all sincere about trying to make this a better industry. And they wouldn't be doing this if they weren't, because there's many, many easier ways to make a living. And many of us had much better livings before we decided to do this and throw it all away. So I think, you know, we've got a lot of work to do, but I really believe we're trending in the right direction. And I think with the right amount of resources, we can really win this.
Sky, I'm just going to jump in to say we're just running 10 minutes over time at the minute. And if there's any guests that do need to leave, please do leave, because we should finish at past. How many questions are left, Sky? Is there
3 left? So yeah, if anyone does want to leave, feel free to shoot off. We've got one from Alex saying, could we have a link from the study that Guy was talking about secondhand vapor? I think it was that one Alex was referring to. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you,
Guy. Sorry, are you on mute? Let's have a look.
No? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Sarah. I just can't hear Guy.
He's not speaking.
Sorry, my internet blacked out for a second there. I didn't hear the question. Would you like to repeat it?
Yeah, it was just from Alex Fraser. He was asking if we can have a link to the study you were talking about. I think it was to do with secondhand vapor, I think.
It was, yeah. Secondhand exposure from vaporized medicine. Yeah, I'm more than happy. I could send that. I think I did post it in his Facebook group, actually, the Medical Cannabis Forum, a little while ago. But if not, I'll be happy to forward it to him so that he can add it to the group. And I'd be happy to pass it to you guys as well.
I think that'd be really helpful information. Emma, you've got your hand up.
I have. I've got a question from Mohammed here. I just wanted to give
Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. My internet keeps dropping.
All right. Well, I'll just start, and if you can hear me, then that'll be good. Basically, it's from Mohammed, who is from Sanskara platform. Recently, I don't know if you've seen, there's been a video of somebody in somebody accessing places in the community with like a big water pipe, and what was it question to say? Do you have any views on whether we should be calling vaporizers heated nebulizers rather than vaporizers?
Yeah, I know there was some confusion about nebulizers versus vaporizers. I mean, strictly speaking, oh, sorry, Guy, you were going to answer this. I do beg your pardon.
No, sorry, Mike. You carry on, Mike. My internet keeps dropping out.
No, I was just going to say that strictly speaking, nebulization makes a liquid into a fine mist, which you then inhale. Just like classic, like an asthma inhaler. So what we're doing when we vape is not actually nebulize.
From what we looked into when we found the definition of a nebulizer, it was medication or like liquid medication that is heated to put it into an aerosol type product that could be inhaled. I can't do it. I can't explain very well. If Samskar is here, I could probably add him. Oh no, I'm not a moderator.
I know what you mean, Emma, because I've been working quite closely with Mohammed, and he calls it's like a heated nebulizer. There's a certain name that kind
It's a
of
heated
blurs
ambulatory
the definition, but
nebulizer.
at the end of the day, it's a vaporizer. It is what it is. But I think I don't have any problem with people going out into public or to a venue and using their prescribed medication if they need it. But I don't think people should push the boat too much if you don't need it and you're just going out to have it in public. And if you do go to a Weatherspoons or wherever it is that you go to, speak to the management first, explain the situation. On our Seed Our Future website, we've got a document all about using your vaporizer in public and the Equality Act and how it, you can print that out, show it to the manager, have a chat with them, because it's all to do with reasonable adjustments. You can't just force your way into anywhere and start vaping. So speak to the management, have that discussion, and this is how we all need to be, professional and reasonable here. And, we need to work with society. And the more that we do that, and the more places that get accepted. And I love your new idea of the patient-friendly venues and everything, and having stickers. I think that's great. And the more we normalize it, the more stigma will be reduced. But we have to do it in a reasonable manner and not annoy people.
Yeah, that's what we say. We say we say that patients will use responsibly, because at the end of the day, we're all respectful people at the end of the day, and I'm a very reasonable person. If I can go outside, I will go outside. I don't expect to be able to vape in every space that I'm in. It just doesn't work like that, unfortunately, as much as we'd love it. But the point of the Normalise It campaign is that we'll be actively contacting venues across the UK, starting with a town, one place in every town in the whole of the UK, and then we go from there. And we get to a point where businesses start contacting us and saying, "I've seen this sticker in the window. They've had loads of people in their medical cannabis patients. How do I get one of these stickers?" And it's just all about awareness, normalizing the smell with the more locations that we get, and boom, we've just got to get it done.
Well, I personally think going for smaller individual venues that seem very kind of a bit hippy dippy at first, and just trying to encourage people like that, and music venues and all sorts of things like that. But I do respect what Sal's done, because it does feel like performance art. It has started a big conversation.
Yeah, Sal's got a very good technique of doing it. He's been on a bus and all sorts with it. And it was actually who attended the Devon and Cornwall police meeting with me a few weeks ago. So I know Sal quite well. He's in the area in the southwest where I am. So good on them, and good on Sanskara for pushing the boat out. And but it's just make sure that all the medical cannabis patients know that, you know, they've got to be respectful and do it in the right way.
Yes, we
I'm
don't want
sure
to
Sal does do
alienate
that.
anyone at first. We
Yeah.
want to come in and do it as a positive kind of thing where we're finding venues that want us, that support us. We don't want to force our way in. We'll start like this, and then when we've got that on board, we can start going to bigger venues and saying, well, this little venue can do it. This small football ground can do it. Why can't you do it?
I mean, to explain how I first got into working in that area and the document that myself and Nally Taylor put together for Seed Our Future, it was actually a member of staff from Drug Science who had been ejected from a music festival in the summer. I think this was back in 2021.
Yeah.
And they contacted us and said, you know, do you know any of the legislation? So I looked into it, into the Equality Act, put that document together, and I actually contacted the Independent Festival Organisers Association, which is a national organisation for music festival organisers across the UK. And I sent the document to them, and it's actually still on their resources page on their website. So that was disseminated to every festival organiser in the UK. So technically, every festival should already know about the document, and you shouldn't get any problems. And festivals are normally pretty okay about cannabis anyway, but you know, it shows how, you know, one email can actually disseminate right across the board in a certain area. Now, if we can do that with football stadiums and music venues, and if we I know somebody had issues with the Wetherspoons. You know, if you took that to a civil trial and won and got some media attention on that, and got the Wetherspoons, say, to put outside every Wetherspoons, it says in regard to guide dogs, you know, no dogs except for guide dogs. Now, if it said no vaping except for medical cannabis on every Wetherspoons outside, that would create massive normalization. So, you know, although we need to start small, we need to think big at the same time. And if we can strategize properly and actually get something like a Wetherspoons to accept it and put something out in the media, you know, that will create a domino effect. It's the same thing with housing associations and everything else. So, yeah,
Yes,
it's
we certainly need a mentor, someone like excuse me, someone like you and the rest of the people here. You are a wonderful resource, and we're small, but we've got many of us so dedicated.
We're all small, and yeah, I'm more than happy to work with any of you guys. You know, it's a community.
Thank you very much for that, Guy. Just Guy, just where we don't want. Can we just? Yeah, I think we should call it, because it might just go on and on forever and ever, and it's already nearly half an hour. Poor Sujinder's been here for a long time. Everybody's been here for a long time, but thank you. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you to everyone. Just want to remind everyone, if anyone has got any spare money for donations, to head to our MCPA website. And we have, what have we got coming up next? We've got our 2 Vape and Chills, which are Friday and Sunday at 2 p.m. and we've got our weekly meeting, which is Wednesdays at 6, and then our next industry meeting, which is March the 4th at 6 p.m. So yeah, I think that's it.
Yep, that's it. Kieran, did you have your hand up? Are you okay?
Yeah, that was excellent. Sorry. Yeah, I'm okay.
That's all right then. Just
thank everybody for coming.
Yeah, but thank you everybody for coming. It's been absolutely fantastic, and
one last thing.
Than needed.
One last thing. We are desperate for sponsors for each month's industry meeting, because they are.
Yeah, so if anybody would like to help, you know, fund these industry rep meetings, it costs £77 every month. So, you know, please let us know, and we'll announce you and say thank you and everything like that. So yeah, please let us know. But thank you again. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Have a good
goodbye. And thank you so much
Thanks
for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
It's been brilliant.
Thank you.